China is a rising star, unstoppable giant, leading power in economics, and of course militarily too, and geopolitically, etc. And the question of this conversation would be like, should we be afraid of China? If you don't take it personally, because we are very interested what you are a fearful enemy of Europe and America, or a friend or ally, or maybe a competitor. Yan Xuetong, a well-known Chinese foreign policy expert, the director of the Institute of International Studies, Tsinghua University. Thank you very much for participating.
It's my pleasure.
So, Professor, can you answer the first question? Should we be afraid of you?
Well, China-Hungary has a very good relationship, and we regard Hungary as our friends. So I don't think friends should be scared or fear of each other. So as long as we're friends, I don't think people need to scare China's rise.
I tell you some stereotypes, okay? What usually the Western politicians, decision makers, journalists, and academics say, this is the reason why we need to be afraid of you. One of them is economic. The cheap Chinese products on the European or American market, and this situation causes some problems with the manufacturers of Europe and America. This is the reason why Mr. Trump, the President Trump, started a trade war with you. So what's your reaction on it? Should we be afraid of the cheap Chinese products?
Well, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about the business. And I don't think anyone fear if they go to the shopping and give the cash to the shopper, and the shopper give them goods. And no anyone fear about they use cash to trade for goods. So actually, China just produce goods and for cash. So I think this is a business, and it's a very normal thing. And this kind of thing have carried out for 1,000 years. So why the Trumps suddenly worry about China's products? Because the U.S. said that they want to maintain the dominance of the world. They want others subordinate to the U.S. so U.S. can give order to others. That's why he said now we rely on China's products. So maybe someday we can no longer order China. Actually, very possible, and not in the future. U.S. no longer able to order China, and even in 1950s, when China really poor, and we have war in the Korea, and at that time, the U.S. cannot order China. So from my understanding, the question is not the price of the products. It's the question is that what kind of relationship we have. We want to be friends, or we want to be enemy, or we want to have a health competition, or we want the worst, the enemy type competition. So I think
how do you describe yourself in this relationship?
I think our relationship, we have friendship with most of the countries, and if I will say Chinese people have friendship with the people in every country, and most of the problems is between the policymakers. And nowadays, because Trump administration adopt a very hostile policy towards China, and so make the relationship is no longer friendship, and mainly is at least a competitor, possibly the confrontation. So in that way, and China can no longer regard the Trump administration as a friend. But we do concern, we can improve our relationship with the Europeans, Japanese, and ASEAN countries, and everywhere in the world.
But even there can be a deal with the U.S. government too. In the coming days, there will be negotiations between your government and the Trump administration. What do you expect from these talks? And question B, if the talks fail, what would be the outcome of the tariff war in 1 year time, one year period, maybe?
And first of all, I don't think the coming talk will reach any concrete agreements. And this is just the first step, and to maintain the official channel of dialogue. And you cannot expect the two countries to reach any concrete agreement just by one talk or discussion. And if they cannot reach an agreement, I think it's natural and not something, a disaster, because they can have another one. And if they cannot reach agreements next time, they can have third, fourth. Anyhow, as long as they continue this kind of a political dialogue, and they can find some solutions in the future.
Second, we talked about economics and trade, and second, digitalization and the ownership of the knowledge. And one of the fear of the Western politicians and societies of view is that China is very strong at the artificial intelligence, innovation, technologies, and who owns the technology, rules the world maybe. And if the Chinese, the one who owns the knowledge and rules the world, that would be a different world for us, many fears. Don't you think that?
I think this is absolutely wrong. And no matter in the modern time or the ancient time, you always have some country have more advanced technology than others. This is nothing new, and just different countries. And sometimes, for instance, during the post-Cold War period, the U.S. has a more technology advantage over other countries. And being Chinese, we never fear about that. We think this is just if someone has more advanced technology than you, then we should learn from them. And we should try to catch up with that. So when some people think about if they don't have the same advanced technology as China, so they fear that means their mentality has a problem, and they don't know how to deal with the situation. And you cannot make every country have the same technology capability. That's impossible. So you always have someone have a more advanced technology than the others. That's normal. That's normal situation. So we should adjust the mentality to these effects.
I see. Third pillar of the controversy is the security, maybe the politics. Many Western politicians watch carefully when your country reclaimed the territory of Hong Kong, and what they saw after that during the last decade or something, that the political system changed to the communist kind of institutions, even in Hong Kong. So they fear that China is strong there. Your mentality, your kind of political system forced upon other countries maybe who are allies with you. There are some, I don't want to hurt you with these examples. I'm just interested what your answer is. That, for example, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, Philippines, and other Asian countries are worried about, for example, this kind of phenomenon that your military exercises nearby other sovereign waters, or there are the coral reefs which China transforms into the naval bases on these disputed areas, or maybe the Pacific. I just wrote an article some months ago about how the Chinese influence growing in the Pacific, small countries, changing from US to the Chinese allies. You, through economic aids, you gain political influence in these countries. So what was the situation with these accusations?
Okay, I think this question a little bit complicated. I may give a relatively longer answer to this. And first, I think your question represents for many people's misunderstanding about the facts. Hong Kong is a city of China. It's not a state. Taiwan is a province of China. It's not a state. And China's naval ships sailed in the South China Sea. That's a public water, not a sovereignty water of any country. So I think there's a misunderstanding. Also, the rumors made up by some media.
I'm sorry, Japan and Australia complain about these sovereign waters too.
Japan
they are independent countries.
Japan is a state, and the Philippines is a state, and South Korea is a state. Vietnam is a state. Hong Kong is not a state. Taiwan is not a state. And South China Sea is not a sovereign territory of the Philippines. So that's the facts. So first I have to clarify the facts. So because Hong Kong is China's city, and Taiwan is China's province. There's no territorial disputes. This territory, the sovereignty owned by Chinese government. There's no doubt, no question, no any challenge on this legitimacy. So the problem for this is that the regime in Taiwan, in this province, want to achieve independence, like you have the situation in UK, you have North Ireland and Sugarland, and you have in Spain, you have some part of the region want to achieve independence. So that's a recessionism. It's independent, a recessionist issue. It's not a territorial disputes. There's no territorial disputes.
I try to aim the question. Let's part the two. Taiwan. Let's put Taiwan a different question, but let's talk about Japanese, Philippines, and Australian fears of threat of you. Is it a real sense of threat or not?
Okay, I think that these governments claims the fears. No, I should say rewording my the current governments of these two countries, Japan and Philippines, and use the territory disputes as an instrument to consolidate their domestic rules. It has nothing to do with the territory disputes. For instance, and China and Japan and the Philippines have this kind of maritime disputes for several decades. Why sometimes we have a very close relationship, we cooperate with each other, but sometimes we cannot. My personal understanding, when the governments of these two countries want to cooperate with China, and they just do not mention this, and because China said we can shelve these disputes and for development our economic and political security relations. But when they have domestic problems, they use this kind of problem to legitimize their tough policy against China, to show their toughness, to attract voters and to vote for them or for their rules. So I think these things are mainly and caused by their domestic politics rather than by international relations.
And sir, many Western analysts, I talked many of them during the last 10 years about Taiwan, the Taiwan issue, and many of them says that I'm interested in your opinion that in 10 years' time there definitely will be a Chinese step to enforce, even in military means, the One China principle on Taiwan. Will it be a conflict, military conflict, or not?
Well, what you said, and I've heard more than a decade, and could be 3 decades. And the people said, okay, China is going to take over Taiwan within 10 years, 1 year after another. And actually, this issue have existed there, and for more than 7 decades. And so these people just imagine there's some military clashes or wars take place in this region. But actually, for the 7 decades, it happened. And so personally, I don't think, I cannot predict too long. But and under Trump's administration, I don't think this kind of disaster will happen.
And can you tell us that what is the big picture, what is the big strategic plan of the foreign policy plan of China to achieve a global leading status, or being satisfied with the American hegemony finished, or what's exactly the goal, what China wants to reach? Let's stick to that 10 years time.
Okay. And I think China want the government clearly advocated for a multipolar world. That means have some major powers and develop peaceful relationship and collectively to shape the global order and the relatively equal between the strong and the weak. That's the picture. And China certainly do not like America's hegemony. China unhappy to see the world dominated by the U.S. and everyone have to obey the U.S. order. This is what the Chinese government and the people don't like. So, meanwhile, China has clearly told the world, we don't want to be another United States. We do not want to replace U.S. hegemony with the Chinese hegemony. No, we think U.S. leadership is wrong. This type of leadership is harmful rather than helpful. So China said that we need a kind of a collective leadership of major powers and to provide public goods for the whole world, for the rest of the world, and to maintain a kind of a relationship where you under the principle peaceful coexistence.
If you said multipolar world and not bipolar world, I'm very interested in who are the poles then, because we see one hegemony which is failing, US, rising star your country, China. There is the other rising star, India, which is not so strong yet, but we will see that. But what other poles can you name? Europe or what else?
And just now, and we have discussed about the reference or standard for measuring the capability of each individual states, which one has the capability to as a pole for the world. Personally, I think in regarding the comprehensive national power, China and the US are two existing poles. There's no other existing comprehensive power pole. And if we're talking about economic poles, and EU could be regarded as one. So we have EU, China, US, the three economic poles. If we're talking about the military, there also could be three: China, US, Russia, three military poles. So that really depends on what and reference you use to measure the poles. So from that personally, I would prefer to use the standard of comprehensive pole, comprehensive capability. That means it compose military, economy, political, and culture, and technology. So if you look measure the capability comprehensively, I think at this moment, only two existing poles. So if you ask me, who will be the potential poles in the future? That's really depend on these countries by themselves. Who can develop faster? Who can catch up with the advanced country?
Can it be Japan with Australia and India?
If you ask me what will happen in next 10 years, I think in 10 years, you cannot find that any country has the capability at the same class as US and China.
I see. Thank you very much. My last question is about Hungary. Why is our country important for China? Is it because we are EU and NATO members, so you have a gateway to the European markets, or a little bit more than that?
Even Hungary withdraw from EU, and we still regard that Hungary is important. And we regard every individual friend country as important. It's not because you have large market or we can benefit anything from the Hungary and economically or security or anything. We think just because we are friends. Because Hungarian government take a friendly attitude toward China, do want to be China's friend. So we regard have one close friend in Europe. That's a good thing.
I see. And the last one is a notion of what we face almost every week, criticism of the Hungarian government, that allies of Hungary accused Orbán cabinet that is a Trojan horse of different foreign interests like China and Russia. Is it a true accusation or not, in your opinion?
I think not only the EU members, I think many countries feel puzzled by your foreign policy. How can you maintain the eco-friendly relationship with China, Russia, and the US when these three guys confronting against each other? They said, hey, that's really strange. I think your government adopt a quite clever policy. Otherwise, China and the US have a trade war, and Russia and the US are actually on the war in the Ukraine. So to maintain the balance is very difficult. So I think you adopt a very clever strategy. Second, and when the other countries criticize the Hungary actually minus that, you should concern whether your policy benefits your country or not. If your policy benefits your people, then you will ask them why we shouldn't behave like that. If your policy hurt your people, you certainly should listen to others' advice. So that's really decided by your government. How do you view your the function of your policy? Whether make your people benefit from it or the policy hurt your people. So my understanding, foreign policy actually is driven, no, I should say in this way, foreign policy should be driven by national interests.
You agree with the Hungarian government? You agree with the American government in this sentence?
Wait whole second. Every country's foreign policy should be driven by national interests. But it doesn't mean that for protecting your own interests, so you should hurt others' interests. That's two things. And everyone should work hard to make money. It doesn't mean that, and we should make it to steal others' money. That's another story. And so when Trump's policy, when he claimed to protect Americans' interests, and the fact is that he said, okay, the policy for achieving American interests at the price of others' interests, that is wrong. Just like all of our individuals. You can't say, okay, for have a better life in my home, I should make my neighbors poor. This is wrong. There's two things. To serve your own country's national interests is one thing. And for their own interests and to undermine hurt others' interests, that's another thing.
I understand. Professor Yan, thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.